Welcome back to another episode of Harmonious at Lunch, the show that fuels your business success. I'm Brandon Gano, your host and guide through the world of harmonious business growth. Today, we're unlocking powerful strategies with industry experts to help your business thrive. If you're a business owner, entrepreneur, or executive, you are in the right place. Join me and our incredible guests today on the journey to clarity, growth, and success. It is time to revolutionize your approach to business. Let's dive in with another episode of Harmonious at Lunch. Welcome back into some more bite-sized business advice. We are going to just totally revolutionize your approach to business today because we're not really going to talk about business. So we are going to talk about the other pieces of this show, that is mind, body, spirit, the stuff that you need to master in order to grow a business. But we have a conversation outside of the realm of business today. We'll tie it all back, don't worry. But I have a special guest with me today. We're going to rewrite and rewire your brain a little bit in 15 minutes. You game for that? I am. Let's do it. I have a special guest, Dr. Ravi Iyer. Welcome to the show, Dr. Ravi. How are you?
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Brandon. I was a little late coming in, but I think we're going to have a great conversation.
That's okay. You're right on time to the person listening. So we're just going to get right to it. And I'm curious. I made the promise that we're going to rewrite people's brains and the narrative that they experienced their life through today. It's a unique conversation for this show, but I'm excited for it because I think it's very important in the context of running and growing a business. So explain for me and for the audience, what is it that you do?
I'm a physician, and the business of a physician is to impact people's lives. For 41 years, I've been a physician helping people transform the way they live, sometimes by changing their chemistry of their body, sometimes I change the chemistry of their mind. Regardless, what I found during the pandemic was that in my clinic, we were exceptionally good at shifting the conversation of people around us. And by shifting the conversation, we were able to help them survive, and not only survive, but they helped them thrive during the pandemic. And by that, I mean not just the patients who came to us, but also the entire community around us of about almost 100,000 individuals in our community. And all of them, including the small businesses around our clinic, borrowed and learned from us and were able to keep their businesses open. And if you are the only business open in a world where all businesses were shut down, you can just imagine the profitability that you'll have. So it was a windfall for all the people in my community to survive, thrive, and be functional during a pandemic when the rest of the world was shut down or were losing their minds. And the way we did it was I showed them how to shift their narrative. And when by the end of the pandemic, it became clear to me that if I could do that for people on a one on one basis or a one to few basis, I needed to take this entire message to a one to many, because I saw that the fundamental problem of productivity, fundamental problem of having a successful life, of having a joyful, impactful life, was the way you saw yourself as life impacted you. And and I realized during the pandemic that what the reason why we were so good was we were able to shift the way people experienced their life. By that, everyone thinks that I shifted the experience. No, I did not shift the experience. It was the same virus, it was the same fear, but I shifted the way they experienced the fear. And I suddenly realized that when a surgeon does an operation, what the anesthesiologist does is he doesn't remove pain. He only blocks your ability to experience pain. The knife still cuts you, and you feel pain when you're able to, when the anesthetic wears off. But during the period of surgery, your experience of pain is shifted, so that your narrative of pain is shifted. And therefore, your entire ability to go through surgery is shifted. So I asked myself the question, since I was doing the same thing here, what if I could do it for whole groups of people. So the first thing was I wrote a book on it, on the pandemic and how we did it. And then I started coming on podcasts and describing it to people. And then now I run a workshop for corporations and for healthcare teams, and enabling them to shift the thinking of their teams such that they produce dramatic impacts in the way their teams function under all kinds of challenges.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating because so that was obviously a very traumatic period for the whole world. We can all relate to COVID and pandemic. But now on the backside of that, we have the opportunity to improve and learn and do life and business differently in a better way, which I think you're cracking the code on, so to speak. So I've heard the phrase, your reality is really just your perception. So your perception is your reality, meaning the way you perceive your life, the way you think things are happening to you or for you is true for you, regardless of how the external world sees that. Is that kind of the conversation here when you're saying shift the narrative, or what's the difference between what you're talking about and that statement?
So, reality is entirely your perception. The reason why we all seem to have the same shared reality is because the tools by which you perceive and the tools by which I perceive are the same. So, you have the same eye and retina that I have in my eye, and your retina responds to the same spectrum wavelength as my spectrum. Your skin has the same pressure receptors as my skin. Your nose has the same olfactory nerves as mine. Your tongue has the same taste buds as mine. Now, so broadly speaking, you and I have the same sensory tools. But like the way that two cars are both cars, but one can be a Lamborghini and another can be a Prius, we have slight variations in the range of sensitivity of our senses, but regardless, we are still having two cars capable of 65 miles per hour speed down a highway and so on and so forth. Now, the truth is, because of this, you and I have the illusion that we have the same reality simply because we see the impacts of our environment the same way. But a bumblebee does not see the same reality as you. A bumblebee sees things ultraviolet. So a snake has a different reality. An earthworm has a different reality. An amoeba has a different reality. So there are as many worlds or realities as there are sentient organs available in the world. So it is not just one universe we all occupy. We occupy multiple universes at the same time. Having said that, let's take a step back. During the time of Christopher Columbus, the common narrative or perception was that the world was flat. And it was flat. It was flat for the way the entire Western world conducted its naval and trade operations. All right. So their reality, the way they lived it, was flat. The reality during COVID was that the vaccine kills people. That was the story. And people behaved like that. People behaved in various because the only problem was during the pandemic there were multiple different conflicting stories, and each person lived their life according to their stories and paid the consequences of living their life according to those stories. Now, let's step away from the pandemic. Let's step back into the world of business. Businesses every day live their life to face certain challenges. Some of the challenges are existential, some of the challenges are not so existential. But regardless, each of these challenges are stories that exist in their heads. You have teams, you have subordinates. saying that such and such boss is an abusive boss, or a manipulative person. You have people living their life as if an opportunity will go away if they don't grab it right now. If they don't, if they will not get a chance to get it again. All these are narratives. They are belief structures and they are constructs, and the constructs happen when whatever situation, whatever real impact on their five senses created the situation to trigger the arising of a particular construct in their head. All right, where did all this occur? Go back to the life of a 7-year-old kid. He finds a stick on the ground for the first time. For a 7-year-old kid, the stick is a wondrous thing because he has not yet made his narrative or constructs around sticks. So he thinks that the stick can be a sword, it can be a spear, it can be a pole, it can be so many different things. And for him, a stick is a source of immense surprise and joy because it has so many possibilities. Then, somewhere along the way, he decides that the stick is now a sword. And from that moment onwards, every stick can only be a sword for him. So, like that, we begin our lives with no constructs. And then we build a construct. And once we arrive at one construct, that construct becomes one more brick in the wall, to paraphrase Pink Floyd. You know, it so that becomes a brick in our wall, and in this way we construct our prison of constructs, and then the world begins to show itself up to us only in within those constructs. So the construct for a Republican is XYZ. The construct for a Democrat is XY, is something else. And like that, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah, so
Now,
I mean, you can see how dangerous this gets just following that path you were going, because you start to
absolutely,
think
it is the
before, right?
danger. It is these kind of constructs that caused women to get burnt on the stake in Salem.
Yeah,
It is this same construct that causes Gaza Strip and the Hamas problem. It is this kind of construct that causes Ukraine and Russia. It is this kind of construct that causes Wall Street crashes. You know, everything is construct based. So my thing was, I found a way of teaching people how to separate, stand in the space, because most of the time we are so unconscious that our constructs come up too close. They are so close to the experience that the construct appears like the reality. It is like a magician's poof, and whoa, the rabbit comes out of the hat. So what I'm trying to say is, what if you found a way to remain conscious enough to the process that you are able to get this much space between reality as it occurs and construct development? I call the development of constructs the eye of the sensory cyclone of life. And these narratives are spinning around you, and you're able to stand in the eye of the storm, and that eye, in that space, you suddenly see these constructs going, and you can decide which construct you want to play with today.
this is amazing, and that's so powerful to be able to just choose the narrative you're going to step into, but not only that, just be
Yes.
really narrative agnostic, if you will, and separate yourself from your
Correct.
beliefs and your
Correct.
constructs. So in we have like 5 minutes ish left in this episode. Can you start to peel back the layers? And while you're doing this, I'm going to put your website on the screen for the viewers and listeners. It'll be in the show notes down below, so you can go check out Dr. Ravi some more, and get some further insights on this. But can you help me understand, how do we take that first step, separate ourselves from our constructs, from our narratives, so we can step into this ultimate power of choosing the way we see it and interact with our reality?
Well, people have been doing this since time immemorial, from Jesus Christ and Buddha and things like that. The problem is that they used different tools to try to grab you. So, one of the things you do is you try to grab onto a single narrative, what I call a grounding narrative. When you hold on to that hard enough and firmly enough, you have a little bit of anchor that prevents you from being spun around by 20 different constructs. So, for example, sitting chanting a Gregorian chant like the monks used to do is a way of narrowing down your constructs to one. All right, holding doing a rosary is one way of doing it, but the practical way is, no matter which way you do it, you have to focus down to one construct, one narrative. Athletes do this all the time. They prepare themselves when they're getting on to stage. They practice a routine, and in that routine, it's a repetitive same routine that they hold on to, and that focuses them down to, so that they become present to the reality rather than spinning in their heads. So one very powerful way is to watch the tide of your breathing as it goes on and on. So initially you start by taking a dedicated space and time away from the rest of the world, and you practice breath watching, and it's mindful awareness. But later on you become so skilled that you can do it in the middle of work. While you're doing it, you're watching your breath, so then you can sense yourself as being an observer of life as it presents to you. And in that space, when you are in that observer space, you don't get triggered, you don't respond immediately. You get a tiny, you just need 3 seconds of space between event and response. If you can get 3 seconds of space, you can rule the world.
Hmm. There's no greater sales pitch, I think, than that one.
Yes,
But I think what I'm hearing you say is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're operating on by default, really on a subconscious level. We're allowing ourselves to be triggered when we become more present and aware of how we're reacting. It's really just a conversation of being present and choosing not to let our subconscious take over. Am I right with that?
absolutely. When people say be in the now, be present, they are talking about creating that 3 second space.
Mm.
The problem is, as long as you're just talking about being in the now, you're never in the now. Example, right now, I want you to tell me, describe being in the now. Right now.
I've
I'm
never
going to
thought
click,
of that.
I'm going
I
to
don't know
click.
if you could do that.
I, Thank you. You can't, because when I click my finger, now is gone. It is gone,
Yeah.
gone, 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 gone. So each time, so being in the now is not us. Remember something. Every description you have, everything that you describe through language is always past based.
Hmm.
You cannot describe something to somebody while being present to it. You have to step away from being present to it to even talk about it. So being present is just being intensely focused and silent. You can't communicate with people when you're being present, but you radiate connection in that moment. A person who's totally present is magnetic in their stance. People around him will come to him and flock to him just to be silent next to him, because in his presence they experience grounding just by being around that person.
Wow. That's crazy. I have to say, this episode definitely stretched my mind. Made me think. I hope you, the listener, too. This just totally got you out of the box of where you were when we started the episode. And Dr. Ravi, I think you over delivered for us. So I appreciate you coming on. And we have your website on the screen. It's in the show notes down below, driyer.com. Is there a way we can find more of you describing this and talking about it so we can
I, I,
elevate
con-
our consciousness?
I conduct a workshop for people that you can enroll in, uh, uh, for It's called The Art of Living Leadership, and it is about creating, finding the methodology and the expertise to create that 3 second of space. That's all you need. 3 seconds of space. If you could go through life with 3 seconds of space between the time life presents to you and the time you respond to it, you will have you would have opened the treasures of the world for yourself.
Amazing. The title of this show is now 3 Seconds to Rule the World. Maybe we'll get banned on social media platforms. That's okay. We're going to try it out. Dr. Ravi, thank you so much for being here. This was a phenomenal episode.
Thank you.
For those of you listening, watching, wherever you are, make sure you subscribe. We have 5-star guests like Dr. Ravi every single weekday, and you don't want to miss a second. There is no better way to get you out of the box that your mind is in and help you grow your business on a daily basis than subscribing to this very show right here. Yes, that was very arrogant, but that's okay. We love having you. We put on this show for listeners like you. We'll see you on the next one.